Welcome back to Minimalist Living Lab. I'm your host, Evan Hart. Wherever you are, walking in the park, sitting with your morning coffee, or winding down after a long day, thank you for inviting me into your space. Today's episode is one that lives beneath the surface of our everyday lives. It's not flashy. It doesn't announce itself. But once you experience it, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. We're not talking about furniture today. We're not talking about how many shirts you should own or whether you should delete Instagram. Today, we're diving into something more personal. Something quieter. Something deeper. We're exploring something that may be invisible to the eye, but undeniable once you feel it. It's not the clean countertop or the empty drawer. It's not the open calendar or the tidy inbox. It's what lives underneath all of that. It's the silence, the stillness, the peace. That rare feeling when the noise finally fades and your thoughts are no longer tangled. That moment when you exhale and realize you can hear yourself again. This episode is titled, How Minimalism Frees Your Mind. And today, we'll explore mental clarity not just as a concept, but as a lived experience. We'll talk about what it really means to think clearly. How clutter, physical, mental, digital, blocks that clarity. And how intentional simplicity can act like a reset button for your inner world. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, overstimulated, or mentally exhausted. If your thoughts sometimes feel like a crowded room with no exit. This episode is for you. Let's begin. Segment 1, Mental Clarity, a Hidden Cost of Clutter. Think of your mind like a room. Not just any room, but the most personal one in your life. A room where every thought you've ever had, every memory, every dream, every decision lives. Now imagine that room not as you'd like it to be, but as it often is. Papers stacked on every surface, each one a worry you haven't resolved. Drawers bursting with should-haves and what-ifs. A calendar on the wall, inked with expectations from everyone but yourself. And in the corners, shadows of regret, collecting dust. It's hard to breathe in a space like that. Hard to move freely. Hard to think clearly. This is what mental clutter feels like. The mind, in its natural state, is spacious, curious, open. But somewhere along the way, we started treating it like a storage unit. We stuff it full of tasks, deadlines, obligations, news, updates, opinions, not all of them ours. We don't sort. We don't release. We just keep piling on. And we wonder why we feel overwhelmed. Why we wake up tired. Why we can't focus even when we have the time. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because something is wrong with you. It's because your mental room is overcrowded. Most of us live like this every day, drowning in to-dos, notifications, and invisible noise. We underestimate how deeply our environment, our surroundings, echoes into our minds. Science backs this up. Studies have found a direct correlation between physical clutter and elevated cortisol levels, the stress hormone. A cluttered home isn't just inconvenient. It literally makes us more anxious. Messy surroundings have been linked to higher rates of depression, procrastination, and mental fatigue. Even a disorganized workspace can slow down your ability to make decisions, solve problems, or regulate emotions. Clutter is not just physical, it's psychological. It chips away at our attention, our peace, our ability to be present. And here's the twist. It's not just the stuff we see that weighs on us, it's the stuff we think. All the mental loops playing in the background. All the open tabs in our brains we never close. That's why minimalism matters. Because it's not just about clean spaces. It's about clear minds. Minimalism isn't about owning nothing. It's about owning only what serves you. What lifts you. What speaks to who you are today, not who you were, or who you think others expect you to be. And that applies to more than just objects. It applies to thoughts, commitments, habits, and even identities. Mental clarity begins when we stop treating our minds like landfills for every bit of noise the world throws at us. When we start treating our minds like sacred space. And the first act of reverence is to clear the room. Segment 2, Decision Fatigue and the Tyranny of Choice. Imagine waking up in the morning. Before you even leave the bed, your brain is already at work. What time is it? Should I hit snooze? What do I wear today? What's for breakfast? Should I check my messages? 10 minutes in, and you've already made dozens of micro decisions. By the end of the day, the number skyrockets. Researchers estimate that the average adult makes around 35,000 decisions every single day. From the mundane to the meaningful. What to eat? What to say? Where to go? Who to listen to? Even what not to pay attention to, that, too, is a decision. It's no wonder we feel drained. This constant mental juggling creates what psychologists call decision fatigue. It's not just a catchy phrase, it's a real cognitive phenomenon. As the day goes on and our mental resources are depleted, we begin to make poor decisions. We delay. We procrastinate. Or worse, we default to what's easiest, not what's best. Have you ever found yourself scrolling endlessly through Netflix, not because you're entertained, but because choosing something feels too exhausting? That's decision fatigue. Or standing in front of your closet full of clothes, thinking, I have nothing to wear, even when it's packed with options? That's not about fashion. That's mental overload. Now multiply that across every area of your life: emails, groceries, apps, conversations, schedules. When your world is overpopulated with choices, your mind never truly rests. Minimalism, at its core, is an antidote to this tyranny. It says, what if fewer choices gave you more freedom? What if simplifying your wardrobe gave you back an hour of clarity every morning? What if automating what you eat for lunch gave your creativity more room to breathe? What if saying no more often actually made space for a deeper yes? Steve Jobs famously wore the same black turtleneck every day. Barack Obama limited his wardrobe to gray and blue suits. Why? Because they understood that their mental energy was finite. They chose to conserve it for decisions that truly mattered. Minimalism doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring intentionally. You remove the unnecessary not because it's bad, but because it's blocking your view of what's essential. In a minimalist life, your attention becomes your most precious currency. And clarity becomes your compass. You don't just gain time, you gain presence. You don't just reduce choices, you elevate the quality of your choices. So ask yourself, where in your life are you tired, not from doing too much, but from deciding too much? Minimalism isn't about living smaller. It's about thinking clearer. And often, the first step toward mental clarity is having less to choose from. Segment 3, How Decluttering Your Space Clears Your Mind. Let me ask you something simple. Have you ever cleaned out a closet, a drawer, or even your inbox, and then just stood there, breathing easier? Maybe you didn't expect it. You thought you were just organizing things. But what happened afterward felt like something inside you had shifted. That's not a coincidence. That's the mind responding to space. We often separate the physical and the mental, as if what's around us doesn't shape what's within us. But your environment speaks to you all day long, even when you're not listening. And when your space is cluttered, your mind is, too. Visual clutter is a kind of mental static. Your brain has to work harder to filter, sort, and suppress irrelevant stimuli, yes, even when you think you've tuned it all out. A stack of unread mail isn't just paper, it's an unspoken reminder. A junk drawer isn't just messy, it's a symbol of postponed decisions. That pile of laundry you keep walking past? It's a low-level whisper that you're falling behind. Over time, these whispers turn into noise, and that noise becomes anxiety. But here's the good news. You don't have to overhaul your entire life to feel the shift. Decluttering, even in small ways, creates ripple effects. Clear off a table, and suddenly you want to sit down and write again. Organize your kitchen, and meals become more mindful, less chaotic. Remove the excess from your bedroom, and you start sleeping better, not because of a new mattress, but because your nervous system finally feels safe to let go. Minimalism isn't about sterile white walls and empty shelves. It's about removing what's in the way, so what matters can rise to the surface. And remember, clutter isn't always visible. Sometimes it's digital. Sometimes it's emotional. Think about your phone for a moment. Apps you haven't opened in months. Notifications that don't need your attention but demand it anyway. Photos you'll never look at again. Each one seems harmless. But together, they dilute your focus and cloud your peace. Decluttering isn't just about getting rid of things. It's about reclaiming your relationship with space. It's about choosing what you want to invite into your field of awareness. Your surroundings are a mirror. When they're overloaded, your mind feels scattered. But when they're clear, calm, and intentional, your thoughts begin to reflect that, too. So the next time you feel stuck or anxious or mentally exhausted, don't just reach for your calendar. Look around you. Your environment might be trying to say something. And sometimes, the most powerful form of self-care isn't a journal or a meditation app. It's a trash bag, a donation box, and the courage to let go. Segment 4, The Mindful Pause, Creating White Space. We live in a world that worships the full. Full schedules. Full inboxes. Full carts. Full plates. We are taught that if every moment isn't filled, we're falling behind. If every corner of our home isn't occupied, we're wasting space. And if we're not constantly doing, we're somehow less. But let me offer a different perspective. One that minimalism quietly teaches. Sometimes, the most powerful part is the pause. Think about a piece of music. The moments of silence between notes aren't empty, they give the melody meaning. Without them, it's just noise. Think about a beautiful painting. The negative space, the untouched canvas, that's what gives the art room to breathe. It's the space between the strokes that creates the emotion. The same is true for life. When you begin to live with less, you start to notice more. You begin to honor the white space in your day, your home, your mind. And that space becomes sacred. It becomes the pause between stimulus and response. The breath before the reaction. The calm before the clarity. Minimalism gives you this margin, intentionally. It's not an accident of having less. It's a decision to protect space for slowness. For recovery. For presence. We often think we're tired because we're doing too much. But the truth is, we're tired because we never stop. Our minds are overloaded not because of what we're facing, but because we've forgotten how to pause. White space is where your soul exhales. In a minimalist life, white space shows up in many forms. A blank slot on your calendar that stays blank. A shelf that isn't filled just because it can be. A conversation that includes silence and comfort in it. A weekend where nothing is planned, and that's the point. It's the space where creativity is born. Where intuition speaks. Where healing happens. But here's the challenge. White space can feel uncomfortable, especially at first. We're so used to rushing that stillness can feel like failure. We reach for our phones in line at the grocery store. We fill silence with noise because it feels awkward. But what if, instead of rushing past those pauses, you stepped into them? What if you practiced being okay with nothing happening? What if that space wasn't empty, but full of possibility? The minimalist isn't afraid of space. The minimalist knows. That's where the magic begins. Segment 5: Stories of Mental Liberation Through Minimalism. Sometimes, the most powerful truths don't come from research or theory. They come from real lives, ordinary people choosing an extraordinary shift. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's a graphic designer in her mid-30s. For years, Sarah believed that her creativity depended on stimulation: books stacked high, vision boards cluttered with cutouts, walls filled with art and objects collected from her travels. Her apartment was beautiful, bohemian, colorful, vibrant. But behind the style was something else. Overwhelm. She would sit down to start a project and feel paralyzed. Every object screamed a memory, a pressure, a standard. A book she hadn't finished. An old sketch she never revised. A journal from a past version of herself, whispering insecurities. Eventually, Sarah realized her space wasn't supporting her creativity. It was suffocating it. So she did something radical. She cleared the walls. She donated most of her books. She let go of every item that didn't support her work right now. She turned her home from a museum of identity into a sanctuary for presence. And something beautiful happened. She didn't just get more done. She felt lighter. She said to me, "My room became quiet. And then, my mind did too." She thought minimalism might kill her creativity. Instead, it gave it space to bloom. Then there's Marco, a startup founder in his 40s. Hyperproductive. Hyperconnected. You know the type. 12-hour days. 5 meetings before lunch. A to-do list that never slept. He didn't come to minimalism because of aesthetics. He came because he burned out twice. On his second recovery, he asked a deeper question. What if I don't need to add more to feel better? What if I need to remove? So he started with his calendar. He removed all non-essential meetings. Then he cleared his desk: 1 pen, 1 notepad, 1 laptop. He unsubscribed from 90% of his newsletters. He turned his phone to grayscale and deleted every non-essential app. The result? He didn't just recover. He refocused. He said, "It's like I finally heard the thoughts I'd been too busy to listen to." Minimalism gave him more than time, it gave him back his clarity. These stories aren't rare. They're everywhere. In people who declutter their homes and suddenly find the emotional weight they couldn't name. In those who simplify their routines and rediscover joy in the ordinary. In those who unplug for a weekend and realize that stillness isn't boring, it's healing. Because here's the truth. Minimalism doesn't take something away. It returns you to something you forgot. Your center. Your inner compass. Your natural rhythm. When you strip away the excess, what remains isn't emptiness. It's you. Segment 6: A practice, not a destination. Here's something most people won't tell you. Mental clarity isn't permanent. You don't reach it once and hold on to it forever like a trophy. You don't declutter your house, your mind, your schedule, and then live in bliss for the rest of your life. Because life is alive. It shifts. It grows. It gets messy again. New commitments arrive. New distractions sneak in. New anxieties build like dust in the corners of your mind. And that's okay. That's part of the rhythm. Minimalism isn't about freezing life in a perfect, empty frame. It's about creating a gentle anchor to return to again and again. Mental clarity is a practice. It's a habit. It's a mindset you revisit, not a goal you graduate from. You will still get overwhelmed. You'll still have days when your kitchen counter is chaotic, your inbox is overflowing, or your thoughts feel tangled. But now, you'll recognize it faster. You'll remember. I know what peace feels like, and I know how to get back to it. That's the quiet superpower minimalism gives you. And it starts small. Always small. Clear one drawer. Delete one app. Say no to one thing that doesn't serve you. Cancel one meeting that no longer aligns. Create one pocket of silence in your day, even just 5 minutes, where you breathe and simply exist. Not because small things don't matter, but because they do. The small choices are how we reshape our lives from the inside out. Minimalism isn't about perfection. It's not about the cleanest house or the fewest things. It's about permission. Permission to want less, to do less, to be less available to the world and more available to yourself, to live slower, to think clearer, to breathe deeper, to be more by doing less. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to burn everything down to begin. You just have to begin. Right where you are, with what you have. Not by adding more, but by letting go of what no longer fits. Clarity isn't a destination. It's a direction. And every small step you take toward it matters. Thank you for spending this time with me today, here at Minimalist Living Lab, where less becomes a lens and silence becomes strength. I hope today's episode helped you see that minimalism isn't just about empty spaces or fewer possessions. It's about freedom from the noise, the rush, the unnecessary weight we carry both around us and within us. It's about creating space so that what truly matters can finally be heard. Maybe you felt a little more stillness today. Maybe you remembered a part of yourself that's been buried under busy. Or maybe, just maybe, you paused for the first time in a while and realized how good it feels to breathe with nothing demanding your attention. If this episode brought even a flicker of clarity to your day, I encourage you. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone whose mind could use a little more light, a little more space, a little more peace. Minimalism is a quiet revolution, one we live out in our own small choices. And together, we're learning how to make room for what truly matters. Not just in our homes, but in our hearts. Until next time. Stay light. Stay mindful. And remember, the clearest path forward is often the one with the fewest distractions. I'm Hart. And this is Minimalist Living Lab.